My dad gave my daughter a stick for her birthday, so I cut him out of my life and took everything he thought he owned. When my dad handed Lila a stick on her 9th birthday and muttered, "That's all you're worth," the world tilted. Riley, my sister, laughed like it was some inside joke. My mom just stood there, silent, like the words hadn't even hit her. I couldn't keep quiet. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Go ahead. Keep acting like this." A week later, the bank called. But not to him. They called me. Now, don't get me wrong. I've always known my father was selfish, full of himself. But this wasn't just another jab or some thoughtless comment. This was something deeper. Lila had been counting down to her 9th birthday, like it was Christmas and summer vacation rolled into one. For weeks, she'd built a list, so proud. She even made her own catalog of gifts, a bright new bike, some art supplies, maybe even a little playhouse. She believed. She dreamed. My wife, Kelsey, and I went all in. We called everyone family, old friends, neighbors. Streamers across the yard, balloons bobbing in the breeze, and a cake Lila picked herself. Her face shined like the candles on that dessert. Then my parents showed up. Late, of course. My father strutted in like he always did, chest puffed, eyes scanning for someone to impress. My mom followed behind him, quiet and small. He wasn't carrying a gift. No box, no bag, not even a card. Just a brittle-looking stick, snapped at one end, clutched in his hand. Lila stopped mid-laugh when she saw it. What is that?" she asked, eyebrows pulled tight. My dad held it out with a crooked smirk. "Your birthday present," he said, like it was some kind of punchline. The room went weirdly quiet. A couple of nervous chuckles slipped out from people who didn't get it. Riley and her husband smirked like it was comedy gold. My mom let out this odd, barely there laugh, like she didn't know whether to play along or vanish. Lila took it carefully, like the thing might hurt her. I don't understand," she whispered. Then my dad clapped his hands together and boomed. "Fancy gifts are for grandkids who earn 'em." And he laughed. Loud, long, and real, like he'd just delivered the world's best joke. Riley giggled. Her husband smiled. Even a few clueless guests cracked up. But not me, not Kelsey, and definitely not Lila. Her face dropped. She looked at me, eyes wide, hurt deep. "Why is Grandpa saying that?" she asked, barely audible. Kelsey wrapped her arm around her, pulling her close. I noticed her shoulders were tight, jaw clenched. She was holding in every ounce of emotion to stay composed for our daughter. But me? I wasn't about to stay silent. I turned to my dad, my voice low. "What the hell is wrong with you?" He didn't flinch, just shrugged. "You know why, Elias? You've never earned my respect. Why would I spend money on your kid?" And just like that, the laughter stopped. People shifted in their seats. A few realized, too late, that they'd laughed at something cruel. I felt it all bubble up inside me. Every year of his favoritism, the way he played with control, his smug jabs that wore me down piece by piece. But I didn't explode. I smiled. I stood, and I walked across the room. Then, in full view of everyone, I grabbed a knife, not to make a scene, but to make a point, and sliced 2 perfect pieces of cake. One for Lila, one for Kelsey. I turned back to him and said, calm as ever, "You're not welcome here anymore." And just like that, the room changed. Not a single sound. Not nervous. Not restless. Just still. So heavy, it felt like the air had thickened. For the first time in my life, I knew. I just changed everything. No one spoke for a long time. 30 minutes, maybe more. My father just sat there, arms crossed like he still ran the room. Like he thought someone, anyone, would jump to defend him. But nobody did. His smirk faded with every passing second, and the silence grew louder. My mother stared at her knees like they had the answers. Riley wouldn't look at me. Guests shifted awkwardly, unsure where they stood now that the tension had split the room in two. Lila sat by Kelsey, picking at her slice of cake with tiny, hesitant bites. She wasn't crying, but she wasn't smiling either. And that hurt me more than anything else. Then my father finally leaned back and scoffed. "Are you serious, Elias? Over a joke?" I kept my tone even. "You humiliated my daughter. On her birthday. In front of everyone." He rolled his eyes. "Come on. She's 10. She'll forget about it by next week." Before I could answer, Lila looked up. Her voice steady, small. "No, I won't." For a second, I saw it. Something behind my father's eyes. A flicker. Not guilt exactly. Not remorse. But maybe uncertainty? A moment where he realized this wasn't going away. Then, like always, he buried it. "This family's gotten soft," he muttered. And that was it for me. I stood. "You need to leave." He let out this loud, Mocking laugh. You're really throwing out your own father because I didn't drop a bunch of money on your brat? Kelsey rose beside me, her voice calm but firm. Yes. Go. That's when the air got sharp, like you could cut it. And for once, my mom finally looked up. She glanced from me to my dad, her lips tight like she wanted to say something but didn't. Riley? She scoffed. Oh, come on. Dad was just... I stopped her. You think this is okay? You think it's fine he treats Lila like garbage while your kids get everything? She shrugged, smug. Maybe if you weren't always enough. I cut in. I'm done pretending this is normal. Dad's never respected me, and that's fine. But I'm not going to let Lila grow up thinking she's not enough because of him. My father shook his head, stood, and pushed back his chair with that familiar sense of outrage. This is pathetic. You're playing the victim again. I stepped toward him. You walked in my daughter's birthday party and gave her a stick. Then you laughed like it was the punchline of some twisted joke. His mouth pressed into a line, hands clenched into fists. But he didn't respond. So I turned to my mother. And you? Are you just going to sit there and let this happen? She hesitated, then spoke softly, quieter than I expected. I didn't know he'd go that far. And that shifted everything. My father spun around to her, eyes narrowed. What did you just say? She sat up a little straighter. I knew you favored Riley's kids, but I didn't realize it had gotten this bad. He blinked, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Don't you start. But she didn't stop. Her voice shook slightly but held its ground. Elias is right. It wasn't funny. It was cruel. Riley's mouth dropped. Mom, but she didn't argue either. She just grabbed her purse and stood. We should go. My father laughed, but it sounded hollow now. You're really siding with him? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. She just avoided his gaze. For the first time in my life, my father looked lost. I didn't give him time to recover. Both of you. Out. Now. My mom didn't protest. She paused, gave Lila one last look, almost apologetic, then turned and headed toward the door. My dad? He lingered. He scanned the room, still hoping someone would speak up for him. But the room stayed still. His lips curled in disgust. You're pathetic, Elias. A weak little leave. My voice cut through him, sharp and cold. He gave a bitter laugh, shaking his head. Fine, but don't come crawling back when you realize you can't erase me. I didn't reply. I opened the door. My mom walked through. He followed, but right before stepping out, he turned and looked at Riley. You coming? Riley froze. She glanced at me, then at Kelsey, then at Lila, who still held that stupid stick in her hand like she wasn't sure what it even meant. Then she sighed and stood. Yeah, I'm coming. She grabbed her husband's arm and followed our parents out the door. It closed behind them with a final hollow thud. For a long moment, no one moved. The guests stayed seated, unsure what to say or do. The decorations still hung. The music had long stopped. The cake sat there, untouched. Then Lila broke. She crumbled into sobs and buried her face in Kelsey's stomach. Kelsey knelt, whispering soft words, brushing her hand gently through her hair. I dropped beside them, placed a hand on Lila's arm. Sweetheart, I whispered. It's okay. She cried harder. Why does Grandpa hate me? Kelsey shut her eyes tight. I clenched my jaw, forcing my voice to stay calm. He doesn't hate you, baby. He doesn't know how to be kind. She sniffled. But he's nice to Riley's kids. I nodded slowly. I know, sweetheart. And it's not fair. But listen to me. You are deeply loved. You don't need his love to be happy. She wiped her nose with her sleeve. But my party's ruined. And that cut deeper than anything else. Because she was right. The day we planned with so much care, the celebration meant to make her feel special. It had been hijacked. The air was heavy. No laughter. No joy. Just quiet apologies and rushed goodbyes as guests tried to slip away. Kelsey and I did what we could to lift her spirits. But the damage was done. The candles had burned down. The gifts felt hollow. Lila put on a brave face, tried to act like she was okay. But she wasn't. And that's when I knew this wasn't over. My father thought he'd walked away unscathed, that he could crush my daughter's joy and get away with it. He liked his cruel little games? Fine. I was done playing nice. It was time to show him what happens when the people you take for granted finally push back. My father had always been obsessed with power. It wasn't just about money for him. It was about control, about making people bend, shaping them with guilt, silence, or shame. He ran our family like a monarch rules a crumbling kingdom. My mother? She was conditioned to obey. Riley? She bathed in the favoritism. And me? I was the black sheep who dared to build something on my own. And that was the one thing he could never grasp. My business, my company, was the one corner of my life he hadn't touched. I built it from dust, from sleepless nights, from sacrifice. Not once did he invest. Not once did he offer advice. But the second it took off, he swaggered around, telling anyone who'd listen that it was ours. Our company, he'd say, built it with my son. As if. And for a long time, I let him. I let him claim credit because I thought maybe if he felt proud, maybe if he felt important, he'd finally look at me and see more than a disappointment. But after what he did to Lila, no more. The very next morning, I called my lawyer. Lock him out, I said. There was a pause on the line. You sure? He's not legally tied to anything, but he acts like he's part of the leadership. Exactly, I said. Make it official. And just like that, I took it all back. He didn't notice at first. He was too busy sulking, probably waiting for an apology that was never coming. But when his calls to the office stopped getting answered, when the bank stopped giving him updates, when the staff he used to order around no longer acknowledged him, he realized something was wrong. A few days later, he stormed into my building, shoulders squared like he still owned the place. My assistant tried to stop him, but he pushed right past and barged into my office. Elias, he snapped. What the hell is going on? I didn't even flinch. I stayed seated calm. Not sure what you mean. His face was already red. I called the bank. They said they can't give me info anymore. I tried reaching your partners. I'm locked out. I shrugged. You said I never earned your respect. So why would you have access to something I built? His jaw clenched. I made this with you. I laughed, cold and clean. No, I made this. You just like pretending you did. You ungrateful little, he started, voice rising. Watch it, I said, standing slowly. You're my space now, and I owe you nothing. And for the first time in his life, he looked unsure. The man who barked orders at everyone, who always got the last word. He was unraveling. I could see it in his eyes. All his false confidence was cracking. He stepped closer, voice low. You think you could just cut me off? I already have. He flinched, like the word stung. His breathing got heavier. His glare sharpened like he might scream or throw something, but he didn't, because deep down he knew he was losing. You'll regret this, he spat, trembling with rage. You need me? I smiled. No, Dove. I never did. Then I pressed the buzzer under my desk. 2 security guards entered, big guys. Quiet. Professional. My father turned and saw them. He looked ridiculous standing there, red-faced, small, clutching his pride like a torn coat. You're kidding, he scoffed. I tilted my head. You think you can storm in here and still expect respect? This isn't your home. This isn't your kingdom. You got no power here. He stood tall, fists balled tight, like he might take a swing, but he didn't. And then, just when I thought it was over, the office door opened again. And there she was, my mother. I hadn't seen her since the party, hadn't called, hadn't expected her to show up. But she walked in, quiet and steady, her presence like a sudden draft of cold air. She looked at me, then at my dad. Nolan, she said gently, come with me. He spun around, confused. What? Why are you here? She inhaled and turned to me. Elias, can we speak? Alone. I hesitated, then nodded. I motioned for the guards to step out. The room emptied, leaving just the 3 of us. Mom, I started. Whatever you're about to say, she raised her hand. Please, just let me talk. I stayed quiet. She took a breath, then said something I never expected to hear. I'm done. I blinked. Done with what? With him. With this life I've let trap me for decades. My father's face went pale. Mika, what are you talking about? She turned to him, and for once, there was pity in her eyes. You've bullied me for years, Nolan. Picked favorites. Torn our son down because you couldn't stand that he built something without you. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. She looked back at me. I should have left long ago, but I was scared. Scared of losing everything. Our house, our stability, the illusion of peace. But I'm not scared anymore. I stared, stunned. You're leaving him? I asked. She nodded. If you'll support me. My dad slammed his hand on my desk. Have you lost your mind? She flinched but didn't back down. No, Nolan. I found it. He turned to me, face contorted in rage. This is your fault. You're turning her against me. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. No, Dove. You did that all by yourself. For the first time ever, my father looked helpless. He wasn't yelling, wasn't posturing. He was just broken. He turned to my mom. You're serious? She nodded, her voice soft but firm. Yes, I am. He started to shake. You think Elias is your savior? You think he'll protect you? I raised an eyebrow. Are you sure you want to talk about protection? He sneered. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned forward, tapping my fingers on the desk. You never handled the finances. You never cared to. That was always Mom. His eyes darted between us. Mika. She looked him straight in the eyes. I've already spoken to lawyers. Everything in my name stays with me. Half the house. Half the accounts. And frankly, after everything I've endured, I'm going after more. His mouth fell open. I wasn't done. And about the business? We did some digging. Found out you've been taking out loans in your name and banking on me to cover them through company funds. His breath hitched. Guess what happens when those loans go unpaid? I said, the bank comes for you, Dad. Not me. He stared at me, disbelief turning into fear. You're bluffing, he whispered. I smiled. Check with your bank. He turned back to my mom. You can't do this. She didn't blink. You brought this on yourself. He staggered back, grabbing the desk like he needed it to stay standing. You selfish, no, I said, rising. That's you. You had a family. You chose control. You had a wife who stood by you, and you treated her like furniture. You had a son who made something incredible, and you tried to steal the credit. I shook my head slowly. You threw all away, Dad, and you've got nobody to blame but yourself. The room went quiet again. Not tense, not awkward, just silent, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. My father had nothing left to say. No clever jab, no belittling joke, no twisted logic to twist the blame. His eyes bounced between me and my mother, two people he thought would never stand up to him. And now they both had. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Kelsey. Lila's smiling again. We got her ice cream. She's okay. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The tension slipped out of my shoulders, like air finally returning to my lungs. That was what mattered. My daughter was happy. She was safe. She was free from him. I looked back up at my father. You need to leave. He stared at me. Something in his eyes had changed. The fire was gone. No more fury. No more power. Just the hollow weight of realizing he had no one left to manipulate. He turned and walked to the door. He didn't slam it. Didn't say a word. Just moved like a man who had finally run out of pawns on the board. My mother lingered a few seconds longer. She looked at me with something soft in her eyes. Maybe gratitude. Maybe regret. Maybe both. Thank you, she whispered. For what? I asked gently. For reminding me I still have a voice, she said. For showing me I could still choose myself. Then she turned and walked out too. And just like that, Nolan Vexley, my father, was no longer a part of my life. I won't pretend it didn't feel good. Because it did. But it wasn't revenge. It wasn't about punishment. It was about protection. It was about making sure my daughter would never again question her worth. That she'd never again sit in a room filled with laughter that cut deep instead of healing. That she'd never again look at me with tears in her eyes, asking why someone who was supposed to love her made her feel so small. That ended the moment I shut the door. From that day forward, our home was lighter. There were no more shadows waiting to pounce behind kind smiles. No more tense dinners. No more fake pleasantries forced for the sake of family. Lila healed, slowly but surely. She stopped asking about her grandfather. She stopped glancing at the door whenever we hosted parties, wondering if he'd show up and ruin it all. Instead, she drew more, laughed more, rode her new bike down the street with that wild, fearless grin kids were when they believe the world is safe. Kelsey and I worked to rebuild what had been cracked, and we did. And my mother? She found a place of her own, quiet, peaceful. I helped her set it up. She even started painting again, something she hadn't done since before I was born. We don't talk about my father much, not because it's forbidden, but because it's finished. His presence doesn't haunt us. It doesn't echo down our hallways or live in the silence between conversations. It's just gone. And honestly, it's peaceful. Some nights I think back to that birthday, to the stick, to the smirk, to the laugh that cut like glass. And then I remember Lila's smile, ice cream on her chin, sun in her hair, her laughter bubbling out as she raced down the driveway. That's what stays. That's what matters. My daughter will never forget that day. But not because of the hurt. Because it was the day her dad chose her. Because it was the moment our family stopped pretending, stopped tolerating cruelty dressed up as jokes, and finally stood tall together. That stick? It was meant to break her spirit. Instead, it became the line we refused to let anyone cross again. And that was the beginning of everything. Sometimes people say blood is thicker than water. But I've learned something else. Respect is thicker than blood. Family isn't just about shared DNA or last names on mailboxes. It's about love, kindness, safety. It's about the people who show up, who listen, who protect the little hearts that haven't hardened yet. My father believed legacy came from dominance. He believed fear earned respect. But his legacy ended the moment he mistook cruelty for strength. My legacy? It's different. It lives in Lila's laughter echoing down the hallway. It breathes in the late-night cuddles after a long day. It shines in Kelsey's eyes when we look at our daughter and see how strong she's becoming. Not in spite of the pain, but because we chose to rise above it. That day, when I told my father to leave, I didn't just protect my daughter. I protected the future. I told every kid watching, every parent struggling, every person who's ever felt small in their own family. You matter. Your love matters. Your voice matters. And no matter who tries to take that from you, you have the power to say, enough. If you've ever been that child waiting for love that never came, if you've ever sat quietly while someone laughed at your expense, if you've ever been told you're too soft, too dramatic, too emotional, you're not the problem. They are. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe anyone a seat at your table if they only bring pain. What you owe to yourself, to your children, to your peace is honesty, is boundaries, is freedom. So build your own family, the kind that hugs tighter, laughs louder, forgives faster, and never uses love as leverage. Let your legacy be the moment you chose healing over history. Because the truth is, sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is say goodbye. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more real-life family dramas. Let me know in the comments what you think about today's story. Was it fair or totally messed up? See you in the next one.